Hello to all of our attendees. I am Andrew Radosevich, Global Market Specialist for CMB Regional Centers. I will be your host for today's event. On behalf of CMB Regional Centers, a warm welcome to all of you that were able to join us. It's truly our pleasure to have you here with us today. We are thrilled that so many attendees here today are delighted to present your Immigration Action Plan. And we hope you find today's event of tremendous value, as we discuss many important topics to consider while moving to the United States. We have some distinguished guests to lead our conversations today. First, our very special guest, Ms. Dianne Stewart, President of Pathway USA. Dianne is an expert in international relocation, as it is the focus of Pathway USA as well. She has been able to assist over 1,500 families successfully transition their lives to another country and has been doing so since 2006. Next, Mr. Kai Boyle, Vice President with CMB Regional Centers. Kai is part of CMB Senior Management, and this October will be his 10-year anniversary with CMB. Thank you for your service, Kai. It's safe to say that he's one of our most traveled and valued members in our company. Today, we will start out with Kai presenting on CMB and EB-5. Then Dianne will discuss what you should consider while relocating to the United States. Lastly, we will have an interactive Q&A following both of those presentations. Some of you have already sent in questions ahead of our event today. Thank you. We will start with those questions first, but encourage you to please ask questions in the Q&A button located in the control panel for today's webinar. If your questions are related to the specific partnership that you are in, please hold off and request those after our event today. And one last reminder, we'll be keeping everyone's audio and video off for the entirety of this event. Without further ado, Ms. Dianne Stewart and Mr. Kai Boyle.
Thank you, Andrew. Certainly appreciate that kind introduction. And we really are very lucky to have Dianne Stewart with us today. And this is the first of many, actually building a library, a volume of webinars on specific topics that are of interest to our families that have trusted CMB with their EB-5 pursuits. And we're taking a holistic approach to providing the information that folks need to come to the United States and to live their lives here. And some of the nuances that the families will face when they get to the United States, many of those times are brand new experiences. So today we're going to try and provide some of the information on those first-time experiences. And then as we build the volume, we'll have several different webinars on various topics of interest to our families. And we encourage you, if you've got an idea that something that you'd like to hear about for a future webinar, please drop us a note with that information. You could send it to info@cmbeb5visa.com or drop any one of our investor relations managers an email and they'll share it with us. So thank you again for attending. We are very delighted and excited for the information we have today. So today's agenda, we'll start off with, we're going to talk a little bit about the EB-5 investment and steps 1, 2, and 3 of your 7 steps to success action plan. And then we'll move to Dianne, our guest today, and she's going to take us through steps 4 through 7. And then we'll finish up with the question and answer, as Andrew mentioned. Be sure to share with us those questions as they come about, put them into the Q&A section, and we'll get as many of those answered as we possibly can. And should there be some that aren't answered, then we'll gather those in, and when we send out our follow-up emails, we'll try and get some of those answered if we can't get them done today. Let's get started on the 7 steps to success. For the EB-5 steps to success, there are 3, and some of those you've already taken. So my job is actually very easy today. You've done the due diligence on EB-5 in a regional center. You've done your research and you've already made the investment. Most of you who are invited today have already invested with CMB and within the most recent year, 2019. So all of you, unless there are some friends that have been invited, have already gone through steps 1 and done your research and made the investment. And step number 2, you've chosen the project and you've gotten an attorney and filed your petition with the USCIS, the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services. So my steps are really easy because you've already taken those steps already. But the third step is that critical step that I wanted to talk about today in your path to success on your action plan, and that's communication with the regional center. Some of you that have already communicated with CMB, we've been getting some questions and you've already received some information. So let's take a look and step back for those that are not familiar with EB-5. And we'll take a quick step there, but then we'll talk about that communication piece that's vital for you as a limited partner in your action plans to success for your EB-5 investment in coming to the United States. So very quickly, as we look through what is EB-5, and this is just a refresher, some of those who have joined us today may not be familiar with EB-5, so let's share that. You may have some family members with you, so let's get started. EB-5 in and of itself is a program from the United States, an immigrant investor program that allows foreign nationals to make an investment in the United States, create American jobs, and if they accomplish that job creation component and make the investment the requisite amount, then they're awarded or they earn or they attain the goal of a permanent residence card, permanent green card. So at its core, EB-5 is a jobs creation program for the United States with an immigration benefit. It is, the gatekeeper for EB-5 is the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services. There's 10,000 visas available every year, and 10,000 visas, as some of you have already come across, does not mean 10,000 applications every year. It's 10,000 visas. So in a family, for example, mama would get a visa, papa would get a visa, and then all of the children who are under the age of 21 and not married would also require their own visa out of that 10,000 visa allocation. And currently, the investment amount has changed. All of you have invested at the 500,000 level. That's the old level that changed November 2021 of last year, 2019. Now the new minimum investment amount is $900,000. So when you invested at the lower amount, and now that number has changed to $900,000. But the requirements for the program are exactly the same, regardless of the amount that's invested. The investors must demonstrate that they've created at least 10 jobs for American workers, and they must sustain that investment until they've completed their 2 years of conditional residency. And if those two things are accomplished, the right amount of investment has been made, the investment has been sustained, and the 10 jobs have been created, then the investors qualify for the permanent residence card. So that in a nutshell is EB-5. But the next piece of this is actually the timeline, and we've already gotten some questions on the timeline and the new processing from the USCIS. They have a new protocol that they're putting in place. So let's walk through that a little bit. Starting at the leftmost arrow on this screen, you'll see the filing of the I-526 petition. That I-526 petition for all of you has already been filed with you and your attorney, filing your case in the business plan, that all that information that CMB has already provided to the attorney. He combines that with your personal information, your CV, your source of funds information, other data that he believes is pertinent. And then he puts in a memo in there and says, this is a nice family, and we believe that you should, they're going to create 10 jobs as a result of this investment, and so we think you should approve this petition. And then that's sent to the USCIS. The USCIS then receives that petition in hard copy. They have to put every copy in this electronic world. Governments still work at the rate of government, so everything has to be sent to them in hard copy. And when they receive that, then they go about processing that information. Well, the time it takes to process the I-526 petitions is posted on the USCIS website. And what they're showing now is about 29.5 to 44.5 months to process the average I-526 petition. Actually, 90% of the I-526 petitions are processed by that 44.5 month number. But this year they've started a new protocol. Because the 10,000 visa maximum in the category has been hit since 2015, now the USCIS understands that their old methodology of first in, first out, the first I-526 petition that's been received would have been processed first, the second one second, and everyone that came after that would be done in relative sequence thereafter. So those who are filing in 2019, let's say, if there are some families who had filed in, let's say, 2017, all of those families would have had their I-526 petitions processed before the investors in 2019. Well, that first in, first out meant that there were families that would have to wait for their I-526 to be processed, but there was a visa that was waiting for them. There was already a visa available because the maximum number of visas for every country hadn't been hit yet. So now what they're doing is they understand that there are some countries that have maxed out their visa allocation every year, and that's about 700 visas. And those are China, Vietnam, Brazil, South Korea, and India. And those 5 countries have maxed out their visa allocation for every year. So there's a queue, there's a back wait for the visa to be available for those countries. Other countries don't have that issue. So what the USCIS has decided to do, beginning in March of this year, is that they are going to pull those investors out of that long queue and put them in a much shorter queue. And what that means is that there's a visa that's available for those investors from those countries who are not in a visa backlog or in a retrogressed situation. Then they get a much shorter processing time for their visa to be, or their I-526 petition to be processed. Now that's new. The new protocol and the new procedure began in March, and then so did the COVID-19. So a lot of things that we would have seen benefit from perhaps already in the ensuing months from March, should that protocol have been implemented at full steam right away, to where it is today, we're still trying to have a good feeling that the USCIS has begun this process and really engaged it. So we don't really see anything specific, any benefits specific to that, and it may take some time to work through. But that's new. And most of you who are investors from non-retrogressed countries or from countries that do not have a visa backlog should benefit from that. And that's very, very good news. So you'll get out of that long queue and you'll be in a much shorter queue to be processed because there's visas available. So fingers crossed that you will see some benefit from that. And I can't promise that. I don't think anyone can, but everyone is hopeful that this new procedure from the USCIS will provide some benefit to you investors who are not in the, who have recently filed that are in non-retrogressed countries. So hopefully within the next few months, we'll start to see some benefit from that. And again, if you have some specific questions, be sure to put those down and we'll try to get to those a little bit later. So let's talk about, we talked about your 7 steps to success and what those look like in EB5. And as I thought about what is it that I wanted to share with you today, what are those steps? And we talked about choosing a regional center and a project and filing your I-526 petition and then communication, but there's got to be a little more meat to that in my conversation, I felt, in my dialogue with you. So as I was thinking about what I would want to share with a group of folks on a webinar and how to express what I was feeling or what that message was and what CMB tries to do and how we try to facilitate changing of lives, in that there was something incredible that was going on TV that actually captured my attention. NASA was soon to launch a manned space launch for the first time in 11 years. Now, when I was growing up as a kid, I remember the men walking on the moon. Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong walked on the moon, and that was amazing to me. And so I've always been amazed by this space launch and space exploration. And as a very young boy, you know, I always dreamt perhaps of being an astronaut or walking on the moon. And that was a stretch, but what was happening on the screen was that NASA now was in partnership with this private company, and this private company is SpaceX. And so SpaceX is president or CTO, Chief Technology Officer, CEO, is a young man from South Africa. He's an immigrant, and he's a philanthropist. He's a genius in many ways, a little bit quirky, but he has all of these great ideas that he has brought to fruition. and that's Elon Musk. And it became apparent to me that, well, geez, Elon Musk is this immigrant. Not everybody can be Elon Musk. That we don't have maybe that genius thought process, but the opportunities that Elon Musk had redeemed here in the United States, those very same opportunities that were available to Elon Musk are available to every immigrant that comes to the United States. And that's what was so exciting about it. Elon Musk, in his own words, he wants to change the world and do good for humanity. Now, those are his own words. So the people that come to the United States, immigrants all that are not born in this country, that come to the United States, they share that, they enrich our community and our families and the fabric of the United States. And again, even though not everyone can be Elon Musk, the same opportunities are available as Elon Musk attached himself to. So that was really an amazing story. But mission success for every space launch means that they get man into space and then they bring them back safely again. So it occurred to me that same way with our investors, for our investors to be successful, then you need a mission success. Now, NASA, to accomplish that, they have mission control in Houston, Texas. And they have this group of all of these engineers and all these mathematicians and all these experts that come together, and they have all this shared experience, and they work out the known issues that they may face, and they solve these problems as they come up, these unknown issues as they happen, and the problem solving skills are absolutely amazing, and all the math and everything is done precisely. They leave very little to chance, and actually nothing to chance. And when it comes to getting man into space and back again, it needs this collection of all of those years of experience and talent and this pool of these experts all together to make that happen. So it occurred to me that that's exactly what the EB5 investors need. And that's exactly what you have got with CMB. When you invested with CMB, you may not have thought about it, but our mission and our goal is mission success for you as the EB5 investor. Our mission success for you is permanent green card. That's your number one goal, is permanent green card, and hopefully at some point in the future to see a return of capital. So how do we do that? Well, we've got more than 20 years of experience. We've got some of the most talented people in EB5 on our staff. We've got a team of 40 different people. We've got project team, we've customer relations team, we've got the IT and the graphics team. We have a team of economists. We had 4 economists on staff. We even got a business legal team that helps to develop those business plans and sort through those complicated legal issues before we bring a project to the marketplace. And we have an experienced executive team. And that experienced executive team, again, is the ones that make the final decision, but they are the ones that channel that communication, that bring all of that rich value and talent together, and eventually bring forth that mission success for our investors. But it's a team effort, and your mission control is CMB and our team of experts. So when you look at CMB as CMB Regional Center, it's multiple components. It isn't just one specific thing. CMB is a big term, but when you break it down, just like we've got those various teams in the combination of teams as we come together, a project team and all of that, in their law team, CMB is a set of components. And that set of components includes CMB as our role as general partner. Our role is investor care. We have a lot of communication with our investors, and that's critical. And then that communication piece, which is absolutely vital in being responsive and providing the communication to our families that have trusted CMB, and certainly we're humbled by your trust. And then the requirements that CMB takes on, that Mr. Hogan takes on, is with his finger on the legislative pulse to know what's going on in the legislature. So let's look a little bit at how each one of those break down. CMB is mission control, but our teams include, again, making sure that the customer care and the investor focus and mission success is what is our focus. Our company has been built on a very small precept, and it's so simple and yet so complicated and so important. So simple it is that we understand clearly that if the investors are successful in their EB5 pursuits, then CMB will be a successful company. Mr. Hogan built the company and with that very, very simple idea, knowing that if we can attain success, mission success for our investor, then CMB would be a successful company. Not the other way around. We're not pushing that the investors have to make us successful. Quite the opposite. We measure our success from the success of the investors. When you look at the management and the business management as CMB as general partner, and then we've got the project development and marketing and the focus on the investors and how that all comes together for our teams. Our teams of communication, we have some of the most talented people in the EB5 industry. And Mr. Hogan is our founder and CEO, and he continues to be active in legislative and in industry leaders and decision-making groups like the IIUSA, for example, where he's been a director from 2010 on. In our role as general partner, you can see that we've got to develop the project. We develop those projects that we make a determination that we believe is going to be successful for the families who invest with us. I'll tell you that most of the projects that come to CMB end up in the waste bin. They don't meet the stringent criteria that CMB has set forth for what a good quality project is that represents the families who will invest in that. It has to create a lot of jobs and it has to have the likelihood that the borrower will return the capital to the partnership. We also have to make sure that we're managing the new commercial enterprise that all of you will invest in. Also, that meet the USCIS, the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services requirements. And that includes a self-audit every year, an I-924A that's filed with the USCIS every year. Also, there's making sure that the reporting requirements are met in all aspects of the requirements legally with the USCIS and others. And then we make sure that the folks that are using that money, the borrowers of the EB5 funds, are in compliance with the things that they've agreed to in the loan agreement. The construction reports, the jobs reports, they have to financially report. They have to undergo audits if we say so. They have to open up their books if we come in to take a look as general partner. All of those components are required in the loan agreements, and we have a compliance team who does nothing but ensure that those compliance requirements are met. So this is a look of some of those team members in the project teams and in our offices in Rock Island, and ensuring that the financial reporting and the audits and all of those components are in place for the limited partnerships that you've invested in. And lastly, but probably most importantly, after you've invested is to communicate with you, the limited partner. Each one of you have gotten a ShareFile account, and I know that most of you, if not all of you, have accessed that ShareFile account. If you haven't, or if you've had a little bit of difficulty accessing that ShareFile account, let us know. We've got a very talented team of IT and who are helping us to put this webinar on today. We communicate the updates to the project partnerships. We update the financial reports and audits. We provide milestone updates. We will send out newsletters, and we have a fellow who handles our social media, and he puts out those newsletters and chats about the EB5 industry or the tweets on some of the milestones that our partnerships have been. We have an entire group that comes together that is focused on communication with you, the limited partner. So no question that you have is off limits. No question is out of bounds. If it comes to mind, if it's something that you need to understand or you have questions about, please let us know. Reach out to us, send us an email, pick up the phone and call. We'll be glad to respond to whatever questions that you might have. Because remember, you've got that communication piece. We're mission control. If there's something that you don't know, then sure, please reach out to us and be sure to let us know what those questions are so we can respond to that. And how we respond to that is what I call investor care. That's being available to you 24/7. We've got live chat. We have our CMB Swissco sister company team who has associates that are scattered throughout the world, including China and Vietnam and Turkey and India and in Central Europe. And no matter what time zone you're in, it seems that we can respond to you in a very short amount of time. We also provide communications to your attorney. That's something that maybe you didn't think about. But when it comes time to file your I-526 petition, CMB is the one that sent them the petition template for your attorney to file. When it comes time for the I-829, about 6 months before the I-829 begins, you're ready to file, we reach out to the attorney to make sure that they're aware that it's your time is coming to file your I-829, and we begin that paperwork of gathering the permission to send the information to that attorney so that he's ready, he hasn't forgotten, and that it's time for him to address filing your I-829 petition. We do not leave anything to chance. Remember, mission success for you is what we're here for. We are your mission control, and we take that role and responsibility very, very seriously. So again, your 7 steps to success, 2 of those you've already done. The last one I just talked about, and that's the communication with the regional center and what we do, what we provide as general partner, as CMB Regional Centers, as our communication channel between you and your investment and your partnership, and all of those compliance teams to make sure that what happens outside of CMB, what happens with the EB-5 funds, what happens with the job creation and all of those components that are met and anticipated, and we hold the borrowers and the users of those EB-5 funds accountable to ensure that the jobs are created so that your EB-5 goals of permanent residence card is met. And everything we do is focused on you and your family. And again, if you have questions, just let us know. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Dianne, because she's going to talk about continuing that path and preparing for your new life. And when you come to the United States, how to be successful in that. And she's extraordinarily talented, so please take some good notes. So thank you, Dianne, for being here. We'd love to have you here, and I know you're going to be of value to all of those that are with us this morning.
Hi, thank you so much. It's an absolute pleasure to be here with all of you this morning. It's morning time here. I'm coming to you from my beautiful hometown of Charlotte, North Carolina. And it was wonderful to see my fellow South African Elon Musk earlier on in the presentation, Kai. We're very proud of him, and it was wonderful to watch his achievements and watch him grow over the years. And as you said, America is an opportunity for everybody. There's an opportunity on every street corner, as I used to tell my 2 small children that I brought here 20 years ago from South Africa with my husband to start a new life and a new business, and all the challenges that went with it. And so that is why seeing newcomers coming to the United States on this program gives me a huge amount of joy, because it makes it so much easier coming on an EB-5 program. As I say to my clients, it's the Rolls-Royce of immigration methodology to come to the United States. And it's a real honor to be able to help people like your clients to come and make a successful life in the United States. Pathway USA was founded by me in 2006 because people wanted help. They wanted to have guidance. They wanted to know how to do things the correct way from the beginning. And so we developed a methodology where we can help you prior to coming, to prepare for your new life before you even get to the United States. We help you when you arrive here with your family, and we help you move forward in establishing that new life. And so the most important thing for us at Pathway USA is to do everything for you that the CMB doesn't do or your attorney doesn't do for you, because there are so many other requirements that you're going to have to learn about, know about, in order to make a successful life in the United States. And I wish that I had had somebody like me to hold my hand, to guide me, and to show me the right way to go and not make the foolish mistakes that I had to make. I unfortunately trusted the wrong people. I didn't do enough due diligence. I didn't really know how to play the American game financially, culturally. I thought that because I was an English speaker, it would be easier for me. That was one of my mistakes. So we are here to help our clients really make the transition, which is really going to be one of the most difficult transitions that you make in your life because it's such a major change, but we all know why you're doing it. We're doing it for your family, for your children, for their education, and for your future. And after 20 years of living here in this amazing country, it was the best decision that I ever made to move my family here. My children are now grown up. My daughter has a master's degree from the University of Cincinnati. My son is a mechanical engineer from NC State University, and we are thrilled and proud of their success. And they have a future ahead of them that I could not have given them in very few other countries in the world. So on that note, I'd like to talk about how we prepare for your new life in the United States before you even get here. There are many things that you can do to prepare your life before you get here. This is a valuable time. You might think that you're frustrated because you're waiting in the line and you're waiting to be processed and you're waiting for that green card visa to come into your passport so that you can get on a plane and come and start your life. But this is a really valuable time that I use for my clients to establish some very important cornerstones for your future life here. The first most important thing is to decide where you're going to live. This is an enormous country. We have 50 states, and they're really like 50 different countries with 50 different climates, cultures, lifestyles. And so we really have a state that could be designed for you. You really have to decide what is important to you, what your lifestyle is, what kind of weather you like, and where your children would be most comfortable and where your wife would thrive, or your family members that you're bringing with you would do well. Secondly, very important to open up a bank account. If you don't have an American bank account, this is an extremely important piece to put in place prior to coming to the United States. Most banks, large banks, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Citibank, they require you to be in the United States in person to open that bank account. We can facilitate that. There are some opportunities that we have heard about recently that you can open up an account from overseas, but ideally you want to be here so that we can explain to you how to manage your finances on a day-to-day basis and living in the United States. Very important piece that you need to put in place. And then the third thing that I want to focus on, and these are not the only three things that I think that you need to prepare, but I'm giving you three of the very important ones, is purchasing a property. There are a number of reasons why we urge our clients to purchase a property before they get to the United States. The first most important thing is that they often don't know that they can qualify for a foreign national mortgage using their credit history that they've developed over the many years of living in their home country. Secondly, it gives you an opportunity to put some roots down when you get here. You have a place to put your family, you have a place to go. Thirdly, it is extremely important to build your credit score before you get here. I'm not going to go into too much detail about the credit score, but basically your life in the United States is controlled by a credit score. So every time you go into a store to get a cell phone, you want to buy a motor vehicle, you want to get insurance for that motor vehicle, you want to get a cell phone, you want to get insurance for your home and for your belongings, they are going to check your credit score. And so in addition to it being an amazing investment, most of my clients who made this investment sort of 2 years prior to them actually coming to the United States have made enormous amounts of money because the property market continues to grow in the United States, and they are thrilled to bits with the fact that the property that they purchased is now showing a wonderful increase in an American dollar, because a lot of my clients come from countries where the exchange rate is not favorable. And so this is an important piece. The other thing that people don't know about is that the insurance, the interest portion of your mortgage payment every month is tax deductible. And so very few countries in the world allow that. So right, now you've bought yourself a property, you've put a tenant into it, they are paying all of the costs of that property because rentals in the United States are higher than mortgage rates. So you can get all your costs covered on that property. And it's going to give you the stability when you finally move to the United States. Either you can decide to live in the property, or you can maintain it as an investment property and keep it rented out to renters. So those are some pretty good reasons why my clients purchase property before they get to the United States. So let's move on to the next slide. Thank you, Kyle. Now you're getting closer to arriving in the United States. The very first thing that you need to do is to get a driver's license as soon as you can. This is going to be the most stressful part of your move because everything is new. Children are going to be getting into school. You're going to be moving, unpacking boxes. This is going to be a really, really busy, stressful time. And this is a very important time to have somebody like us to help you and to see you through the bumps in the few bumps in the road that you're going to meet. So getting a driver's license is really important because a driver's license in the United States is like your identity document. So if you go into a store and you want to present them with a credit card, they're going to ask you for some identity. And that's what you'll have to have. I think that in most states in the United States, you have to get a driver's license within 60 days. But I do not recommend that. I recommend that you get it as soon as you can because you want to get it over and done with. And there are very few things that you need the driver's license to do a lot of things that you're going to need. For example, buy a car. You're going to need to purchase a vehicle. One of the golden rules that I tell all my clients is do not pay cash for anything. In America, we don't pay cash because money is very cheap here. And so we use other people's money at low interest rates and we keep our cash to ourselves. So getting that driver's license is going to be essential as you walk into a dealership or you go and speak to somebody about getting a vehicle, because I'm sure that both you and your family are going to need some cars. The next most important thing, and I can prepare you for that driver's license before you even get to the United States because everything is online. So I can send you a link to the state that you'll be moving to, and you can start studying up on the various signs of the road and rules and regulations that you're going to need. And so that you'll be ready and prepared by the time you walk into the DMV at your appointment time, and you then go out and do a very short driver's test. I'm afraid you're going to have to do a driver's test again, but it's not to be feared. It's nothing serious as long as you know that you've got to drive on the right side of the road and you don't make any foolish mistakes. It's really a no-brainer. Getting your social security number is the next most important thing. I understand that the consulate where you will be getting your green card in your passport in order to travel to the United States, they are doing this automatically and they're sending it directly to the Social Security office in order to secure a number for you if you don't already have a number. And this is very important as well because your Social Security number also controls your taxes, which is a very important aspect of your life in America. Everybody files taxes. Every April 15, your taxes will be filed. And so your Social Security number is also linked to all of your financial accounts. Your bank account wants a Social Security number, and lots of other important organizations sometimes request a Social Security number. So those are two very important pieces that I want you to get as soon as you get here. Then developing your personal professional network. You'll be meeting a lot of new exciting people when you get here, but I can assist with developing your own professional network in your particular industry, in your particular interest, field of interest. You might want to be a member of Rotary. You might want to join an international group. You might want to join a cultural group of the country that you come from. But it's very important to get going on your personal and professional network as soon as you get here. Let's move on to step 6, which is getting you going and living here in the United States. I spoke about this very important building a credit score. It's terribly important that you have some sort of history by the time you get here. It's very difficult to start building a credit score when you get here because nobody wants to give you credit. Doesn't matter how much money you have in the bank, they're not keen to give you any more credit because they don't know how you pay your bills. So this is a very important piece, and we guide our clients, we teach them, we show them what the rules of the road are with regard to how much they need to be spending on their credit card, what kind of lines of credit they need to build a credit score. And within 18 months, most of our clients who have behaved well and paid their bills on time have an excellent credit rating, and it's up in the early 700s, which is unheard of if you don't understand how to do it. Nobody sat me down when I first got here and explained to me exactly how to establish that credit score. And so I was paying a lot more in fees for my insurance, for my health insurance, for all sorts of things. In fact, we've even heard recently that when you apply for a job now in certain companies, for example, if you want to go and work for a bank or you want to work for a financial institution, they are going to check out your credit score to see that you are a reliable individual, that you are not running up huge debt and not going to be good for their organization. So very important if you're looking for a job when you get here. On that note, we also help our clients establish an American resume, which is very different to a CV, for example, that is often common in the rest of the world. So we help our clients devise and to rewrite their resume that it's in American, because we speak a different language here. You might think that it's English, but I come from a British background and it's not American. So there's a lot of words that we use that nobody understands here, or that have a completely different meaning. So getting your resume sorted out so that you can have a good resume to put the best foot forward and get that job, that dream job that you've always dreamed about, very important piece. Establishing an income is, of course, very important when you get here. Many EB5 clients of ours want to start a new business, but they want to look around first and learn and look and see how things are done here, because certain businesses do very well in the United States and others that do well in other parts of the world don't. So very important to consult with experts. We surround ourselves at Pathway with experts, business brokers, financial advisors, business attorneys that can look at an existing business that you might be interested in investing in or buying, and they will then tell you exactly what they think, and whether this is going to be a good idea. So very important to establish an income or a new business when you get here. Some people are very lucky and they can retire when they get here, and that's marvelous and wonderful. And then we can regale you with wonderful trips that you can make to our 50 states. We have extraordinary national parks everywhere that I am still dying to explore. I've been to many of them. I've dragged my children to many of them, and they are extraordinary. We have just the most incredible national park system in the United States. So there's a world to discover out there. And then lastly, but not least, is to interact with Americans. So often people who come from different parts of the world seem to gather with their own kind. They stay with their own cultural norm. Yes, that's great. But remember, your children, regardless of whether you like it or not, are going to become American. They are going to be American citizens. You're going to have American grandchildren. And so interacting with Americans and getting to understand what makes them tick, what is important to them, getting to know their holidays, celebrating the holidays, and really involving yourself with what is so amazing about this American life. So that's just in a nutshell the kind of things that that Pathway assists our clients with to make sure that your move in coming to the United States is a happy one. Because the things that cause stress are the things that you can't control. And so once you're in control of everything that you can be in control of, things go so much better and so much smoother. So how to be happy in the United States and how to live this best life that everybody talks about, that I've enjoyed, that my children have enjoyed, that my clients are enjoying, is to establish a good circle of American friends. When I was in need and I was going through tough times, my American friends would rise to the occasion. Always ask for help. Americans are the most helpful people on the planet. I'm sure you've noticed that when there's a crisis in the world or a catastrophe, who is the first country that shows up? With help, with ships, with planes, it's the United States of America. And that is what makes us so enormously helpful. Also, I encourage my clients to volunteer. Volunteer at your child's school. Get involved in what your child is learning and seeing, because they're going to propel you forward in this journey as well. And be actively socially engaged. Go to events, go to launches, go to openings, volunteer for organizations, for arts organizations in your city. We in Charlotte have a gorgeous symphony orchestra. We have amazing art museums. We have extraordinary social and cultural life here. And so I I urge you to involve yourself in that, because your children are probably going to do music lessons, swimming lessons, sporting activities. One of the fondest memories I have is of us bringing my small little boy, Michael, who was 7 at the time. He'd never seen a baseball bat in his life. He'd been playing cricket, and he just took to it like a fish to water. And it was wonderful to watch him with his helmet on at the baseball diamond, enjoying baseball. And he's still a Yankees fan to this day. Bruce took him up to Yankee Stadium before they tore it down and built a new one, and he was in his element. They had a whole boys' weekend. And so the opportunities here to be with your children and to live a life with your children. Before I came to the United States, I really wasn't engaged in my children's life as much as I am in America, because family is important to us here. And so at Pathway, we become family. We become your friends, we become supporters of you, and we're there. We take calls in the middle of the night when our clients has a child with a fever and they've just been here for a couple of weeks. They don't quite know what to do. It's not quite a 911 emergency. What do they do? And so we're that support system for you here in the United States, and we look forward to serving you in the future. Thank you, Kyle.
Well, thank you, Dianne, and certainly incredibly valuable. Some things that I didn't think about as an American citizen. The fact that we do use our driver's license as the ID card. Oftentimes it's just commonplace. Can I see your ID or driver's license? And it is almost universal. So that's an interesting aspect. Also, that driver's license will allow domestic travel based upon that identity. The new driver's license has a new code on it that allows, you don't need a passport to travel within the United States on airplanes. Show the ID card, and it has the fact that it has there's a gold star in the corner that they've already done your background check, and they've done an evaluation and certified that the picture and the name and all of that's on the driver's license is valid, and you can use it for domestic travel on airlines.
Very important, yes. And in fact, some of the clients that are here already, we've had to urge them to get what we call the real ID, which is the new ID with the embedded technology in it that you can use to get onto any aircraft domestically in the United States, including Hawaii and Puerto Rico.
Great.
Yeah.
Great tip. So thank you for that. Thank you. On the screen, for those of you who are with us today, I've got Dianne's contact information, and just as a disclaimer, Dianne and Pathway USA, they're not taking a fee for this webinar from CMB. We're not paying them. Dianne was good enough to come and share her time, and because she understands the importance, being an immigrant herself, and of the importance of settling in the United States, and how to remove some of that worry just by preparing for the families to prepare and get ready and to know what to expect when they're faced a lot of those decisions for the very first time. Dianne's already done it and guided 1,500 families through it, so we thought she was a natural candidate to share that with our limited partners.
Thank you, Kai. Yeah, well, just so that our viewers know, there are so many other aspects to making a successful move to the United States. We haven't spoken in any depth about health insurance, about life insurance, about having a will and a last will and testament, very important before you come to the US, and then to get it registered with an attorney here. There are so many aspects that go into making this move. So it was difficult to focus on a few important ones, but there are a lot of very important other ones that we do work with our clients very closely with, and are able to advise and able to explain the system to, especially health insurance. Health insurance is a mystery to people coming to the United States for the first time. There are lots of different options. And so if it can be explained in simple language, people understand what the risks are and how to insure themselves to the best of their ability. And that's a very important piece. Yeah.
And it's important to have someone navigate, or at least be ready for to respond to the questions as they come about.
Right.
And that leads us to our Q&A, our questions. And Andrew, you've been gathering those questions and will you share what you've gotten with some of those questions that have come in?
Yeah,
Please.
sure. Thank you. Kai and Diane, thank you. Very valuable information. We actually have received quite a few questions during your presentation, so it's clearly sparked some interest in some other places. We have one here that says, has anyone from Group 68 been approved yet through the application process of I-526 or I-829? So that's probably a question best answered by Kai.
Yeah, I don't have that information in front of me, so let's get a message, gather that in so we can get that out and get that responded to.
Sure.
The specific project information and partnership information I didn't bring in, but we will get a response to you to the Group 68 as far as the petitions that have been filed and whether there has been any approvals on those partnerships yet.
So I have one that was ahead of the event today. I would like to know more about the USCIS decision to adjust process for managing EB-5 visa petition inventory and what is to be expected for new timelines in light of this change.
Right, I touched on that a little bit, and thank you very much for that question. It's one that's on the minds of most that have filed in recent days. And the processing difference, and I'll retrace a little bit of the steps to, just in case someone joined us a little bit late. The USCIS has determined that there's a better way to process I-526 petitions. The old way of doing it was first in, first out. Those that had filed their I-526 petition first would be processed in the order, generally in the sequence in which they arrived at the USCIS. Well, what that was doing was that was causing an even larger backlog or a buildup, if you will, of an inventory of investors whose I-526 petitions were processed that were available for the consulate interview, but there was also a large number of investors who had not had their I-526 petitions available or processed. So even though there may have been a visa that was available to that investor, they couldn't get to it. They couldn't because they hadn't had their I-526 petition processed. That meant that the visa that would have been available for them, they didn't get a chance to get to it because they hadn't gotten through that first stage yet. A little bit of background, there are 10,000 visas in the EB-5 category. That's the maximum in the category. There's also a maximum for every country, and that maximum for every country is approximately 700. For countries that have not reached that maximum 700, that means that if an I-526 petition has been processed and approved, then there would be a visa that's available for them. So now we're seeing that the countries such as China, India, Vietnam, South Korea, and Brazil have backlogs. They have more investors who had invested or more visas taken every year than there are allocated for that given country. But every other country has visas that are available. So if you're an investor whose I-526 petition has been filed, but your country is not one of those 5 backlogged or retrogressed countries, then you have a visa that's available for you. Now, rather than standing in that long queue, the USCIS has decided, well, let's move those people out and put them into a shorter queue. What that means is we're hoping, we haven't seen it yet, we're hoping that the processing time will be much shorter than posted times. That started in March. They were pushing forward to begin that process, that new processing in March of this year. Then COVID-19 hit and the world came to a stop almost. So I don't believe they've had enough time to really engage that new process and to push it all the way to the tips. So we will see what the processing time will be based upon this new methodology because we haven't seen it yet. So we're anxious, believe it will bear fruit for the investors who are non-retrograde countries, and certainly fingers are crossed that will happen, but it hasn't happened yet. I think it's a good idea that the USCIS has done that. Could it be 50% of the today's current posted time? Certainly, maybe less, maybe more. I don't know. No one can really say until it gets fully engaged and the process works itself through. In my conversations with the Charlie Oppenheim, who works with the State Department, and he writes the visa bulletin every month. He said that it may take a year for that to continue to work itself through where the benefits have been felt. So fingers crossed that those of you who had filed in 2019 and maybe late 2018 who were part of this webinar will get benefit of that new procedure. We haven't seen it just yet.
Thank you, Kai. There's another one that I'm sure is on everyone's mind here. It says, how has the current worldwide COVID pandemic situation affected the timeline of limited partners investment? And does this affect the immigration timeline at all?
There's a couple of questions there, and one of them is the investors' timelines. If it's the timelines begin when you file the I-526 petition, and then all the way through to the filing and the adjudication processing of that second petition known as the I-829. Insofar as the majority of CMB's projects, I'll tell you, remember, we're mission control. We saw that there was going to be a storm on the horizon, this COVID-19 storm. And I think every business in the United States, regardless of whether you're a gas station or a corporate conglomerate or a tennis shoe manufacturing company, everyone was impacted in some way, and we're no different, and our partnerships are no different. However, the difference is in the way CMB approached the looming storm on the horizon. Long before the World Health Organization declared a pandemic, CMB had already engaged and become active in discussions with our borrowers for our limited partnerships. We began that discussion talking about COVID-19 and whether or not there had been any adverse effects on COVID-19 to, again, gather those reports in anticipation that there may be some sort of disruption. And for the most part, we had those conversations long before it was a must. We were in anticipation of that possibility. And those reports went out to our limited partnerships. So each one of you who is invested with CMB in your share file account has a response to what the COVID-19 impact was to your individual partnership. If you have not accessed that information, and I don't have the specific projects in front of me, but I do know that without fail, I would think that most all, if not all of our partnerships have received their COVID-19 response letter that describes what the impact was to your particular partnership and whether there was any impact at all. The majority, I would say, had no impact, but that was reported to you. Again, that communication piece, that was already sent out. And if you have difficulty accessing your share file account or you haven't done that yet, please do so and get back to us if you need some assistance with that. Be glad to help, because that's that communication channel. That's that repository where we put that information about your project, potentials, the updates, the milestones, the COVID-19 letters, all go into that ShareFile repository, and that's available, and you should be sure to access that because questions come up or they may come up, and so just send us an email and we'll get those responded to right away. So insofar as that, the COVID-19 information is available to you. It's in your ShareFile account, each one individually based upon your partnership. And as far as the immigration line, once you file the I-526 petition and process through all of that, immigration timeline, I don't believe, and again, this may be on a case-by-case situation, but I don't believe that that has been affected in any way at all. It may cause a little bit slower processing on the I-526 in some cases, but once you arrive at the United States, that triggers that 2 years of conditional residency, and that's a firm 2 years. So I don't think that the immigration timeline is going to change at all.
Great, thank you, Kai. This looks like one for Dianne. Should the bank account be open even before arriving in the United States?
Yes, that's a very good question, Andrew. If you're going to be buying property in the United States, you have to have a personal bank account in the United States. Your money has to season in that account for a number of weeks, a number of months, in fact, prior to purchasing, because the bank wants to know that the money, like your EB5 investment, has come from a reliable source, that it's not suspect money from anywhere. So there is a paper trail for it. And the real estate laws in the United States are very strict. And so there is a protocol that you need to attend to once you've decided you want to invest in property here. Very good idea to do that. And yes, so the short answer there is yes, you do need a bank account as soon as possible in the United States. It'll stand you in excellent stead for your future life here.
Perfect. Thank you, Dianne. You had briefly touched on healthcare. It looks like there's a healthcare question, and obviously there's a lot of nuances to it, but I'm going to cover the question, and maybe you can help expand a little bit on it. On starting a new life, obviously healthcare expenses is always a terror of everyday life. What tips do you have for immigrants wandering through Medicaid, marketplace, private providers, etc.? And then what about those that are 65 plus who have not worked in the U.S., who don't qualify for Medicare until 5 years later?
Very good questions, and very important piece, especially if you are nearing retirement age. Most important is that you consult with a healthcare professional. We have professionals in this country, like mortgage people, who work exclusively with mortgages for property. We also have people that work exclusively with healthcare programs that are experts in the entire setup. And yes, it is complicated. And yes, if you have a job, for example, if you're employed by an employer in the United States, you will probably get a healthcare benefit from that employer. So that's an important thing to bear in mind. If you get a job, even if you only get a job at Home Depot, you're going to get health insurance coverage, which is for you and your family, which is, of course, very valuable. So with a job in the United States comes benefits. If you are going to be self-insuring, like I do, I am insured with the Affordable Care Act, with the healthcare marketplace. It works very well for me because I am an independent sole proprietor. I'm a small business owner, and so that works extremely well for me. And really, what you need to work out is that how much insurance do you really need? Are you healthy? Do you have health issues? Do you have pre-existing conditions? There are a number of aspects of your healthcare insurance that you need to look at. And it's very much like life insurance, where you look at your risks and you insure accordingly. The Medicare that comes into play once you have earned your 40 points as an earner or a taxpayer in America, that's going to take time. It can take up to 10 years in order to get those credits, but there are other options for people that are heading towards 65 to insure themselves. So it's not really a problem. It's just finding a fit for each individual. And so if you look at it that way, you can in fact get a very affordable solution to your healthcare.
Thank you, Dianne. Knowledge is definitely key with the healthcare side, so thank you for expanding upon that. This will be a question that likely is for Kai. Also wondering if you can speak with stay requirements. Example, out of the 60-month requirement until naturalization, the applicant must spend 30 months or less out of the country. Will this satisfy the 5-year rule, or obviously want to stay for the entire 5 years, but need time to wrap up home businesses, etc.?
And that's a terrific question that you should pose to your immigration attorney. That one, because it deals with your immigration process, you need to get good legal counsel on that particular question. There may be some nuances that they can guide you through that you should be aware of, that as I'm not an immigration attorney, that I'm not aware of and couldn't guide you correctly. So please reach out to your immigration attorney. That's a very, very legitimate question, especially for those that wish to become a U.S. citizen and you want to comply and you want to be ready for that. So that's a terrific question to pose to your attorney, and then stay closely whatever guidelines they provide you, make sure that you stay close to those.
Kai, I can comment on that because I've been through the naturalization process, and so understand that the US government wants to know that once you are a legal permanent resident of the United States, that this is going to be your primary residence. And so in order to do that, you need to show, when you apply for naturalization, or citizenship, that you can prove to them how long you have stayed in the preceding 5 years, how long you have spent actual time in the United States. And this is very crucial because not many people keep records of flying up and down. And they want to know the days that you were away. And the only way that you can, and this is a little tip that I hope everybody doesn't forget, it's very important, is that the only way that you can prove when you arrived in the United States or when you left the United States is not with an air ticket, it's with a boarding pass. So you have to retain your boarding passes, very important, because anybody can book an air ticket online and say, well, I was out of the country at this particular time, but a boarding pass confirms when you arrived and left the country. And so for the 5 years preceding when you're waiting to apply for your citizenship, your naturalization, keep those boarding passes so that you can actually go back to them, and when you fill out your form, you can actually fill out exactly the dates and the years that you came in and out of the country. Very, very important.
Thank you. We have another one here. How do we get our taxes done and by whom?
Again, as Kai says, as Kai says, there are so many experts in the field. I recommend my clients work with a CPA, which is a certified public accountant in America, who would prepare your taxes for you. But I recommend that my clients work with somebody who has international experience, because most EB-5 investors have international holdings, they have international investments, they have international funds, around the world. And so very important that you deal with somebody who has an international experience, lots of international experience. This is not your small town CPA who just, does simple tax returns. That can be a disaster. So very important to find a professional that has worked on an international stage.
Thank you, Dianne.
You're exactly right. It can be tricky to navigate, so you need someone to guide you through that process, especially with international holdings. CMB has a list that we can send out of those organizations and those individuals that provide that service. I'm sure that you do as well, Dianne. But so if you're asking about who to do or how to do, please drop us an email. And we'll be sure to send out that response to you with that list.
And just regardless, once you are a resident of the United States, you have to pay taxes in the United States, and you have to file them on April 15 every year. Whether it's a business filing, a personal filing, you do state and federal taxes. Very, very important. So that's another consideration when you are trying to work out where you want to live. You can look at what your state taxes are going to be if you choose a particular state to live in. A very important consideration.
Fantastic, thank you. So I have another one here, and this is probably one that both Kai and Dianne can touch upon. Can you talk about follow to join? So example, the spouse would go first, husband and kids would join later. What's the latest to file for follow to join, any special deadlines or any others that they should keep in mind?
That's another question for the attorney. I think, Kyle,
really
that's definitely a question for the attorney. From a personal perspective and from a family perspective, I don't really recommend that you leave your family behind. This is a traumatic move. This is a big move. This is the biggest move that you're going to make in your life. And so splitting up your family at that point is probably not helpful, and it's probably not sensible. So unless there's a very, very good reason for doing it, and I can't think of any major reasons other than a health issue, I do not advise that you leave your family behind, that you actually relocate together and you start this move together and you start living together and you put your children in school together. It's very important that the family cohesion be maintained, because I think if you start fracturing it, it can get very dangerous and very messy. So that's just my own personal feeling, because I have seen this happen and it's not good.
I agree with you. It's a question for your attorney. If it's because it's specific, you've got a specific set of facts and specific set of goals, and those patterns come together individually. that's one where the attorney can only guide you on your individual case. So I
Right,
would
and it does complicate the immigration issue. It does complicate it, and you don't want to add any more complication to an already complex situation. The the U.S. government is expecting you to relocate en famille, as we say, with your whole family. And so if you start coming and going at different stages, it could create confusion and it could create issues that were unnecessary. So, definitely a question to discuss with your attorney, but I'm happy to talk to anybody about those decisions as well on the personal side and on the family side. I hope that answers that question.
Thank you.
To the best of our ability without being the legal experts, yes. So thank you. There is another one here that is regarding school, and I know that we had some questions about preschool, early education, and then this is also another question about senior school and undergraduation, kind of fees to expect specifically for undergrad.
Okay, I can speak to that, Kyle. Having educated two children here throughout their elementary, middle, senior, high school, and undergraduate and graduate programs, I think I kind of can speak to that, the ups and downs of educating children. Senior, from K through 12, what we call from K through 12, which is kindergarten through 12th grade, is free in the United States. An extraordinary thing about the US is that if you live or you purchase a property in a great area or you live in a great area, it's more than likely that you're going to have a great set of schools attached to that address. Very important that you live in a good area. Other than that, you may want to consider private schooling. Now, private schooling is great and many people consider it, but it's very expensive. You're looking at between $30,000 to $50,000 a year, K through 12. My children had experienced both. When we first got to the United States, my children went to private school for 2 years. And then I discovered that because I lived in a really great location, a great neighborhood, my schools that I was zoned for were absolutely excellent, and in fact better than the private school education that I was paying a fortune for. So my advice is to research that very closely, and there are lots of websites available that you can go on to see what scores those schools have, but that tuition is free. And it's a remarkable advantage. It blows me away that my children were collected from our house, outside my house as little children, got on a bus, taken to school, educated, fed, and then sent back to me. It was an extraordinary experience because I had always been to private schools and I was always used to paying for education. In America, you do not need to pay for education if you live in a great area and you have a great school attached to your home. Secondly, because you're becoming as a green card permanent resident, you will be entitled to pay what's called in-state tuition. There are 3 different tiers of tuition and at a tertiary level, colleges and universities. You can either be an in-state person, which means you live in the state that you're resident of and you go to a university in that state. Secondly, if you're an out-of-state student and you want to go to a university that's not in your state of residence, then you'll pay more money. And if you're an international student, as I'm sure most of you know, you're going to be paying top dollar for a university in the United States. So the advantages of having a green card are enormous. My children decided to go, for their undergraduates, they went to private liberal arts universities in North Carolina, where they got the most amazing education. And then Sarah decided to go and do her graduate program at the University of Cincinnati, but she got a full ride. So if your children are smart and they are and they work hard, there are enormous amounts of scholarships here available to your children as well. And those, as green card holders, those are open to all of you, which is another extraordinary thing in the United States. There's money all over for tuition.
So there's another one that came through that would be almost a follow-up to this. Is it possible to enter the USA with a study visa while waiting for your 526 approval?
That's a question for an attorney. Yes, I have had clients who have done that, but I can't speak to the legalities of that, obviously, because we are we don't have an attorney on this panel. But yes, people have done that, but it is complicated. And there is a way to do it and a way not to do it. And so it just depends on what your attorney advises you, whether you file before or after or whatever. But generally speaking, once the USCIS has seen that you have immigrant intent, which means you filed the 526, you're waiting for your green card, they know that you are going to be staying in the United States. You're going to have to prove to them that the reason why you're coming to a university is actually to be a student, not trying to jump the line. And that's very important. So that's a discussion that I urge you to have with your legal counsel.
I agree with that. And stepping back on the other topic, where just preceding that and the costs and that, there's a secret in the United States that most families from outside the U.S. do not know. And that secret I'm going to tell you. It's called community college. In the United States, there are things that are a 2-year community college. The original design for community college was so that local employers could educate students coming out of high school, graduates of high school, or even those that are still in high school, and provide them with the foundational information that they need so that they could have a workforce that was already educated based upon the needs for the local employers. Well, that role still exists. However, that role has been expanded. Community colleges, in many, many cases, also have connections to a 4-year university. What happens then is that students go for 2 years to a community college, and the tuition for a community college is maybe 1/3 or 1/5 of what it might be for a university tuition. And the students do their 2 years of prerequisites. They get all of their prerequisites in order and complete those and at the community college level, and all of their GPA, their grade point average, and all of their credits, they roll up to the major university and they qualify, even though they didn't take classes at the major university, they took them at the community level. All of those credits roll up to the major university degree. So the children are taking classes at the community level. They're still working and living, maybe living close to home. And then for the final 2 years, they roll up to a major university and they finish their diploma, their undergrad, at the major university. 2 years were very, very inexpensive. They allow children who are coming out of high school or still in high school in some cases to explore what they want to do with a degree. And then they roll up all of those credits to the major university, and they still get a 4-year diploma, a undergrad degree from a major university. But 2 of those years were spent at the community level. It's really a well-kept secret for those who are not in the United States. For those that have families already here, it's something that my children explored without fail. They went 2 years to community college, and my daughters then transferred to major universities and finished their undergrads there. So it's something else to think about. And school in the United States, very high quality education in most cases, and it's not necessarily expensive all the way through the first 2 years of their undergrad at the community college level.
Kai, you're absolutely right. Community college is just an extraordinary thing here in the States, and many of my clients' children have used it as a gap year. So if they've finished high school in a foreign country, they come to the US and they do a gap year at the community college to get them into the system. Wonderful bridging thing. The other thing I want to say is that if your child is gifted and they really are good at academics, community colleges have what they call associate degrees, that the children in high school, my kids did extra courses at community college while they were in high school, so that they didn't have to do those courses when they got to college. So there's another side to the community colleges as well, is to make life easier for a high school student who wants to go straight into an engineering program or medical program or dental program, something like that. So yes, community colleges I'm a great fan of them as well. They're fantastic.
And I'll share with you, my daughter's pretty smart. She did the dual enrollment. She was in high school and went to community college. The community college tuition was $0. because she was still in high school, all she had to do was pay for her lab fees and her books. Really an amazing. It was quite a bargain, and it's available to anyone that's a green card holder that here in the States. I'm sure that they will come under the same type of formula. Really terrific.
Yeah, and I want to add one more thing. Foreigners that come to the United States often think that their children have to go to the big Ivy League universities, the big, most expensive universities. It's been our experience that that's not always necessary. My son got into MIT. He decided to go to NC State University because his reasoning was this: he'd rather be the biggest fish in NC State's pond of 4,000 first-year engineering students than the bottom fish at MIT. And that held him in great, I mean, that was really a fantastic decision, because when employers looked at where his class ranking was at NC State, he was in the top 10. He would never have been in the top 10 at MIT. And so he just walked straight into a job at Oracle. And so you have to know that you don't have to go to the big Ivy Leagues if you want to get ahead in America. There's opportunity for everyone.
Very true. Thank you, Dianne. So we've talked about the parents and the children some today. Can we bring our pets with us, and how do we do that?
Oh yes, you can't move a family without beloved pets. We've even moved a parrot. So yes, moving animals into the United States from foreign countries is not difficult. It costs about the equivalent of an air ticket cost to relocate a dog or a cat. Obviously, we're not talking about a huge dog. Medium-sized animal is probably the same cost as an air ticket with a little bit of extra fees. There's no quarantine required when you relocate animals to the United States. So they literally pick them up in your home country, put them into a kennel situation, put them on a plane, fly them to the US, and deliver them to your home. Another reason why you want to have a home that you can put your children and their pets in.
Thank you. This is probably an attorney question, but maybe Kai, you can try to answer some of this. Does having special needs impact the visa approval? And can the special needs applicant request to skip the interview? If not, can a family member accompany the applicant for this interview?
The second piece of that question is the one for the attorney, and how to guide and navigate through that. I'll share with you my experience, my observations, and from this certainly isn't a legal foundation, but we've had families with special needs, family members, who came to the United States specifically because the services that were available here in the United States were not available to them in their home country, and it's more than one family. So it's possible, and it is certainly a destination for many families simply to access those services. And it's an amazing story when families come here and they finally receive services for their family member that just was not available to them in their home country. So it's an amazing story. One of the families most recently, they moved to North Carolina specifically. We're just talking about universities, because the university has a research platform, and their entire scope, or their sphere of focus, is on whatever the individual debilitation happened to be. And I mean that in a sensitive way, but the family member needed special care and needed special attention, and the local university, or the nearby university, provided that. And there was a major research hospital or major research university for that specific type of need. So terrific story. As far as attending the consulate interview, what the State Department wants, that has to come from your attorney, and follow their guidance specifically on that.
Thank you, Kai. This is one that says, can you explain property insurance and how it works for a car or a home or other things like that?
Yeah, I can take a stab at that, Kai. I'm sure you can chime in as well. Basically, when you first get here, and you need to have insurance for your car. You can't drive a car awful lot without having insurance already organized for it. So no cars are uninsured here or allowed to be uninsured. And so the way they do that is, first of all, they check your credit score, and then you ask the insurance company. You can get a couple of quotes, but you ask the insurance company to insure you for a period of 6 months at a time, and you pay either monthly or 6 monthly. So you pay twice during that period. And what you need to be aware of is that you are a brand new driver when you get here. So you're going to be, your premium is going to be heavily loaded for the first year or two that you drive in the United States, because they have no record of what your driving skill is like. And so just know that for the first year, it's going to be expensive. It's going to be probably twice or even 3 times more expensive than an ordinary American driver would be paying. But just know that once you get through that period and they can see that you're not having an accident every week, that your insurance premiums will drop dramatically after the first and especially the second and third year. So they view you as a brand new driver, as if you were 16 years old, even though you've had experience driving in your home country. They are going to load your insurance for that first year. So that's an important consideration, that you don't go out and buy a Lamborghini when you get here, because the insurance is going to be pretty heavy. And you certainly don't want to buy your 16-year-old a Range Rover, because they're going to be paying a huge amount of insurance as well. So you need to be sensible in this regard, and we're here to advise you in that regard all the time.
Exactly right. The insurance is based in the United States for an automobile is based upon not only you as a driver, but as someone else who may be driving that has little or no experience, or maybe they're running afoul of the law and they don't have any insurance at all. So you'll have an uninsured driver. So that again, the goal is to protect you from someone else, or to protect someone else from an accident that you might have. And it'll be based upon your skill and rating. It'll be rated based upon the number of years you've driven without incident, without tickets. And certainly if you have an expensive car, then the insurance company, it's going to cost them more money to repair and make that automobile whole. So they have a higher premium. The rate that they charge you will be a little bit higher to make sure that there's enough in the kitty, so to speak, to pay for that damage when it happens. Property damage and property insurance works the very same way. The funds are to protect the home. Now, typically when people buy a home in the United States, they have a mortgage, and that mortgage is bank heavy. The majority of money is owed to the bank. So the bank is the largest portion of the note holder on that, and you're responsible as a homeowner to pay the mortgage to the bank until it's paid off. Well, the bank wants to make sure that if something, some catastrophe happens, or maybe it's weather related, or maybe heaven forbid the house catches fire or something along those lines, that they can be made whole. So the insurance then covers to make that property, to rebuild the property, maybe put a new roof on that's blown off during the storm, or to clean up after the tree has fallen on the garage, something along those lines, to make sure that that's rebuilt. So that, yes, you have a home that you lived in and it's been restored, but also it protects not only you as the homeowner, but it protects the bank as the note holder on that. And again, there's premiums, and those premiums are paid either annually or semi-annually, once or twice per year for a homeowner. But it works in the same way, that if there's nothing that happens, then you're just paying premiums, and you don't really need the insurance necessarily. But in the case of a catastrophe or some sort of damage that happened, maybe a storm or what have you, then you can draw upon that and contact the insurance company to make things, to restore your home again.
Right, I just want to add something to that, Kai, is that in the United States, when you make a mortgage payment on a property that you own, the principal amount, the interest, the taxes, and the insurance on the property are all included in that monthly payment. So it's a very neat package that you get when you purchase a property. And that's another reason why I encourage my clients to purchase a property before they get here, because the tenant will then cover all of those costs for you. So the entire investment will be self-sustaining. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that there is something called a home warranty insurance, which I also recommend that my clients take out, because very often people come to the United States and they don't really know how our houses are constructed. They don't understand that we have hot and cold forced air, we have air conditioning and heating in our homes. And so if anything goes dramatically wrong within the first couple of months of living here, it can be a huge bill. You know, it can cost 20 or 30,000 to replace, for example, my HVAC system in my home to heat and cool my house. So if you take out a home warranty insurance, which is about $500 or $600 a year, you can call out somebody to repair something that has gone wrong, anything mechanical in the house that has gone wrong, and you pay a sort of a call out fee of about $75, and the rest is covered by the insurance. So very important piece of insurance that I recommend to my clients take out, especially for the first couple of years of living in the United States.
It's great information. I actually have a home warranty on my home as well. Kai, maybe you can try to answer this. There's two similar questions. We have answered part of one. Will Hong Kong go through the same adjudication process as China? And what does the change in the I-526 process mean from applicants from China, India, etc.? Does this mean the process will be slower for these countries?
The answer to here, I'm going to give you my understanding. Hong Kong is still considered an individual chargeable entity when it comes to the allocation of visas in any category. So that means that Hong Kong will be processed individually and not like mainland China. So that's the answer to the first one. As we understand it today, Hong Kong will be individual and mainland China will be individual with two baskets of visas allocated individually and separately to those two differing entities. The other question has to go with the processing times. Andrew, what was could you read that to me again?
The question essentially asked is that with the update to 526 processing times, does it mean that countries like China or India, basically retrogress countries, their processing times would become slower?
Mm-hmm. And that's an interesting question. The answer is we don't know. The answer, the other side of that is it may be likely that those who have filed an I-526 petition from India and China, maybe Vietnam, will be slower. And for some families, that's an advantage. Here's why, and is that the children who are part of the I-526 petition application their age is locked in during the period of time that the I-526 is being adjudicated. That's a protected child age. Once the I-526 petition has been processed and approved, then that veil of protection comes off. But while it's still in queue and while it's still being processed, that protection for the children and the children's age remains in place. So those families, we anticipate that those families whose I-526 petitions have been filed from retrogressed countries, China, India, Vietnam, who will be processed based upon an available visa, should then also have, it may be a little bit slower, but the children's age will remain frozen and it will not change. That veil will not be removed until that I-526 petition is processed. And assuming then that the processing will be based upon an available visa, it protects that child until that visa is obtained. So that's my understanding. That certainly could change. And there's some nuances in that are specific to the processing and how it all works out. But that is a very good question. It may take a little bit longer, but the advantage to that little longer time is that the children are protected, the children's age.
Thank you, Kai. We have another one here. So for public schools, if I only buy a property upon arrival, settle and start to pay land district tax or whatever it may be, can our children apply and get accepted and start at a public school? How would the school know that I am a new resident of the district and accept us? And then do I pay higher tuition fees as a start?
Okay, I'll jump in for that one. every residence, whether you own it or whether you rent it, is zoned for a particular school. And every child in the United States is entitled to attend free of charge the public school that is associated with that address. So to answer your question, first of all, if you were to arrive in the United States and purchase a property, it would have to be cash, because nobody is going to give you a loan. No bank is going to give you a loan with no credit score. So very important that you build that very important credit score. Otherwise, you have to use a lot of your cash in order to buy a home in a reputable neighborhood that has a great school attached to it, because that's important. You want to buy a property and live in an area where the school is of a very high standard so that your children can get the best education. So it doesn't matter whether you own that property or whether you rent that property, your children are immediately able to go into that school and be accepted into that school. And the things that you have to prove, you have to take with you a rental agreement, a title deed of the property, and a utility bill to prove that you are actually licensed to live in that house and that you are paying utilities to live in that home. So that is the only requirement that you need to provide to the school in order to get your children into the school. But you can see why I'm thinking about 5 steps ahead, so that you already have that house, you already have that score, you already have that bank account, you already have everything in place, so that you don't have to use your hard-earned capital cash in buying anything for cash in the United States. And you don't want to rent, because rentals are going to be 30% higher than if you owned the property and were paying the mortgage back. So it makes no financial sense to rent when you get here. And it makes no financial sense to lay out all of that cash to buy a home for $300,000 or $400,000. I hope that answers your question.
Thank you, Dianne. We are approaching the end of our event. Looks like we'll still have time for maybe 1 or 2 more questions. Here's one. Where do we find a doctor or urgent care for after hours?
Well, that's important, and it's also important to know what if you have health insurance or not, because there are a number of urgent cares, which is basically a doc in a box, as we call it, a doctor in a box. You can go there 7 days a week, 8 to 8 p.m., and you can show up without an appointment, and you can see a doctor. If you have a child who has a fever or something wrong with that child, you can take them, see a doctor, get a prescription, and get that child sorted out. But it's important to know whether you do have health insurance or whether you're going to be a cash settler in the first couple of weeks that you're here. So we advise our clients on all of those things so that you don't get ripped off. Because if you walk into a doctor's office or into an urgent care or into a hospital and you say, "Hi, I have an urgent situation here, but I don't have health insurance," they're going to charge you top dollar to see you. So those are things that I teach my clients to be aware of and to be careful of.
The doc in the box idea is well explored and well ingrained in the fabric now in most communities in the United States. Even the small communities will have some sort of urgent care or clinical setup, so that those families who need to see a doctor, they may not have their own private physician or a doctor that they go to see with any frequency that they've got that they can rely upon. They go to the convenient care. It's readily available. The hours are lengthy. The services are typically top-notch, and the quality of care is very, very good. And each one of those community-based organizations with the doc in the box, as you might say, the convenient care, the critical care, they're tied to either a major hospital or several major hospitals. So if you need something beyond what they're able to deliver right there, they'll assign you, or they'll recommend you to either a specialist or some sort of a emergency room if it's that serious, or certainly a hospital, because they're connected in that way. So it's really a good idea that they satellite out and they provide that community care, and very convenient. Oftentimes it's several at the corner of some very busy highways. You can go to the convenient care, and so it's a very convenient and easy to find.
But very important, Kai, just to add to that, is that if you are just arrived in the United States, it's very important to have some sort of international medical coverage for at least a couple of months prior and after you arrive here, just in case you have some sort of catastrophic event that has to be taken care of and you don't have your healthcare insurance in the United States in place yet. So very important to have, like you would take out if you were traveling abroad, very important to have that to cover your entire family during that period.
It looks like we have two last questions here. If you were from India, but in the USA currently, and at the time of filing the EB-5, does that give you a preference in the processing time?
If you're in the United States, you're from India, does that give you an advantage to processing time?
Correct.
My understanding, that answer would be no. The instant petition, that I-526 petition, is the fact that it still was first in, first out. India is a retrogressed country. There's a queue. There is no processing time that's quicker, simply because you were established in the United States and when that time that was filed. Now there's a subtle nuance in that, and again, get with your immigration attorney, because you're in the United States. When that I-526 petition has been processed, there may be a way to change status, even though you haven't gotten the visa yet. There may be a way to change status here in the United States from whatever visa that you're on now to the immigrant-based I-526 visa. But again, that it takes the counsel of a legal guidance to guide you how to do that, and if that's available to you. But as far as the individual processing based upon filing, simply because you're in the United States, that doesn't hasten the pace of the processing of that I-526 petition.
Thank you, Kai. We have another one here. What is the plan for intending immigrants from Nigeria who are impacted by the immigration ban?
Let me discuss with what I understand that the State Department has said about Nigerian travel is they were looking to work together with that country to provide what they called a robust off-ramp, and that robust off-ramp was to lift the ban at some point, and they're looking at October to make that happen. We'll see what happens. But again, it's something at the highest level of both governments to work out at the State Department level and whatever the equivalent of the Nigerian government would happen to be. Our State Department said that there would be a robust off-ramp and a big opportunity for the country of Nigeria to meet whatever the requirements are and to lift that ban. So we're anticipating something to happen soon. Hasn't happened yet, but so we'll see. But certainly on our side, as EB-5 Regional Center and representatives, and knowing what the families want when they come to the United States and the reason that they want to come here, we certainly hope that the governments can work things out and restore normal relations in that way.
Thank you, Kai.
Can I just add something there? As I understand it, it is a security issue that the two governments are negotiating to make absolutely sure that there is security on both sides. I think that's really what the issue is. It's nothing personal about the country. It's just basically, what are their security in place so that we can ensure that the people coming from Nigeria to the United States are not coming to harm us, basically. And that's really the bottom line.
Thank you.
So one final question, and then we'll wrap up. You mentioned the public school system. Are a city or state's special schools included in this, assuming you pass the special exam, such as an arts or a science school?
Yes, most public school systems have an incredible variety of what we call specialist schools, art schools, music schools, science schools, language schools, and they are called magnets. We call them magnets in North Carolina. They attract the best and the most talented students. And yes, sometimes there are allocations. The children get recommended to go to a particular magnet. And yes, that absolutely does happen. So there is a specialized school for every talent available on the planet in the United States. So if you have a child that is particularly gifted in sport, for example, or in mathematics, or in language, or in the arts, music, fine art, ballet, dance, there is a public school program for your child, free of charge.
Thank you so much. Well, that concludes our webinar today. A sincere thank you from all of us for sharing your time and staying throughout our entire presentation. We hope you found this to be a valuable resource while planning to move to the United States. Please feel free to use the contact information on your screen if you would like further information after this webinar ends. We'll have a video link available if you would like to watch again or even share with family and friends, which we will send to everyone who's registered for today's event. You should expect to receive this follow-up email in the next few days with links and contact information as well. Again, thank you, and we look forward to seeing you stateside.
Thank you so
everyone.
much for everybody. Thank you so much and goodbye.
Bye, thank you.